Hey everyone, I am Ayush and I am back again with the second part of that amazing recipe finder application that we were building in the last part of this. We can say the first part of this recipe finder, and in the last part we have achieved a lot in terms of like UI implementation, styling of the components and defining the components in React.js. So if you guys haven't watched that video, that is available on my YouTube channel, the Indian Dev. So you guys can go and watch that particular video and like just to give you the introduction about this part of this video or this recipe finder application. In this part we will be implementing the APIs, we will be like working with the material UI components, we will be like understanding the concept of debouncing with the user inputs, and finally we will be like giving the application like some more touches in terms of like user experience, and like finally we will be deploying our application to GitHub Pages. So that like just to give a brief intro about this application. So till now what we have achieved is, in terms of UI, we have created this particular header, there is a search box, and there are the components, or we can say the recipe components for the application. And like till now everything is static because we haven't like fetched anything from the API, and in this part we will be working with the APIs. So like before working with the APIs, what we need to do is, in terms of the UI reference, we need to get the data from this input box to the state of the React application, because like whatever we are typing here, we just need to get that, because on behalf of that we will be calling the API to search the recipes. Like if I'm writing here egg, then I should have this data in my state. So for that, what I'm gonna do is, in the search input, header.search input, what I'm gonna write is like whenever the text is changing, so for that I'm gonna use the onChange event listener, and on that onChange event listener I'll be calling one of my function that I'll create, const on text change, and with this text change method, like if I can write it here, I'll be receiving the events from this particular search box. And whenever I am receiving an event or any data change, what I need to do is I need to call the APIs. So I'll just write console.log as of now, like API call. So just to check and like just to understand that what else we need with the API call, because if I can just save this and if we can expand this, and I'm gonna go to the inspect option of this particular browser, and in the console section, if I just write here, like if I just wanted to write here paneer, so like for that the API call must be there. So we are just checking that paneer. So here is the main thing that we need to skip, or we need to find the solution for that. Like here I'm writing paneer, so for every letter change or every character change in the input box, we are getting a callback here, API call. Okay, so that's why like in most of the applications there is a submit button, so that there are not multiple API calls. And as we have seen in the first part, that admin API is having some sort of limitations in like number of API calls, so we cannot call like 5 times or 6 times an API for just fetching a single result. So what we will do, we will be using the concept of debouncing. And what's that? Debouncing is all about, like if I'm writing something here, like if I just wanted to write paneer, then until or unless the user has stopped entering the characters, I will not make any API call. For that, if I'm writing paneer here, then there like after a small pause of the user, the API should be called, not like this that we are calling the API every time. So for this, like for like achieving this concept of debouncing, what I'm going to do is I will simply do that if anyone is entering some data in the input box, then I will wait for around maybe 500 milliseconds or maybe 1000 milliseconds, that is 1 second. So once the user has typed the like ingredient name, then I'll take a pause for like 500 milliseconds, so that if I can get that if the user has stopped writing the ingredient name, and now I can make the API call. For that implementation, I'll be using the set timeout method. And for like for having that set timeout method, I'll do one thing. Like whenever I'm getting the callback on text change listener, I'll call set timeout method. And in the set timeout method, I'm gonna call this particular console.log after interval of 500 milliseconds. And what it will do is it will like call the API after 500 milliseconds, but we wanted to achieve the API call should be for like only the last time. So what I will do is I'll like, as we all know, if you don't know that, I'll tell you that this setAmount method return a timeout ID, and that I can keep in the constant. And this timeout ID, like okay, so now the thing is I just wanted to keep this timeout ID or the timeout in the state part. So for that I'll be like declaring the state using the React hooks, so I can keep it as timeout ID. And the method to update this is update timeout ID. Like, as we all know that this use state React hooks returns an array with exactly 2 elements, so we can do it here. Now the thing is just after like setting up the timeout, what I wanted to do is, if I am calling this, like if I'm writing here P A N so E, so what I wanted to do is, like for the P and A and E N, I don't want to make the API call. So what I'll be doing is I'll just clear out the timeout that I've received from these character change. So for that I'll be writing clear timeout, and in the clear timeout I can provide this timeout, but I'll not keep this timeout here. I'm gonna keep it in my state. For that, like once I have received this timeout ID, I'll be updating this in the state. And when I just wanted to clear this timeout, I'll be using this timeout ID, so that like the interval or the API call can be skipped for the initial letters. Now I can go to the inspect option of my browser. In the console part we can again have a look. If I can clear this out and let me refresh this again, in this part if I'm writing here PANEER, then now you can see that there is a single API call. So guys, we have achieved the concept of debouncing that you have seen in maybe some of the websites of Amazon or maybe from Flipkart. So yes, like that was all about the debouncing concept. Now we can proceed for the API calls. So let me like drag back to the small screen. Now for calling the APIs, as we all know that we will be using the admin APIs that we have done the setup in the first part. So if you guys haven't seen that, like seen the first part of the video, then you should go and like check out that video. And as we all know that for this, like for making the API call, we will be using the library axios, and axios is again a very popular library. You all must have like seen that library in various projects. If you haven't seen that, I can simply like walk you through with that library. Now like this axios thing, like if I just go to the browser and write axios in the npm section, then you will see that how we can use this axios for like making the API calls. And here you can see that the weekly downloads are very much, and here you can see the 72 million downloads per month. Now just for the simple use, we have just installed these dependencies. Now if I just wanted to make the API call, then I just need this like to import this axios, and I can make the API call. If my API is of get type, then I just need to pass the URL and it will work well. For that, like what I can do is I can simply like get back my credentials that I have like fetched from the admin, and I can simply post it here, maybe in terms of constant. So I'm writing that here, this is my app ID and this is my application key. And as we all know, like the URL that we have accessed for fetching the results, I can simply like put that URL down in the description box as well. So like again we can check it, like if that URL or my API keys are working or not. I just need this app ID. I can keep it here, and the app key is here. So I can write the app key in the search string. I can write, like as well we were looking for paneer, I can go with paneer. Now let's see that if this API is returning the data. So yes, it has written some data and it is being formatted by the JSON extension. So yes, here for paneer we are having the 10 items, 10 hits, and in that hit you can see the recipes and all the stuff. So we can simply use this API for like fetching the data. And again, the axios, that is very simple thing. I'll be writing here like maybe here from where I need to make the API call. I'll not write the code of that API fetching. I'll create another method here like to maybe fetch recipe, and in that fetch recipe what I'll do is I'll receive the search string, whatever the string I am writing in the search box, and depending on that search string I'll make the API call. And in that API call we are using axios.get, because that is a get URL. And in that part what I can do is I can simply provide the search string, as we have like these like app ID and the app key in the constant part. So what I can do is, as I have used the template literals here, I can simply write dollar and the curly braces, and I can pass the app ID. Similarly I can pass the app key, so that like if I just wanted to change my app ID or app key, then I can simply go to the constant part and simply change this. And again, I cannot hard code this paneer. I'll be using this paneer from the search string, and that's it. That's how we have like you guys can see the code for the API integration is pretty much clear and easy. Like this way we are fetching the data from this URL, and Axios will provide that result to us. For that, like I just need to call this fetch recipe from here, and in this part I just need to provide the search string that we will be receiving from this event or this search box, that I can get from here, like this event dot its target is search input box, and its value. So whatever the value I will be writing in the search input box, like that is here in the on change of search input, I'll be receiving the value of that particular part, and I'll be passing that into the search string. And as we can see, like after the get call, I can simply console my response. So as of now I'll just check if everything is working fine with Axios. I'll simply go, and again I'll toggle the console. In the console part, let's see, I'm just clearing it out. If I'm writing here paneer, then let's see if there is any API call or not, or if there is any console part as well. In the network section, yeah, so in the network section we can see that the API is called https and api.admum, and with our search query and the API keys. And in the response part we have received the hits or the recipes that we can see here. And in the console part we have also like received the data here. In the data part we are having all the stuff. So like from this respect, what we can do is from that like this if I can move that to down section, like if you can see here, like this Axios is returning the response in this format. We need to use this key data, and inside that data we are having the key hits. So what I'll do is like instead of this callback approach, I'll be using async and await. So if I am writing await here, and if I'm writing await here, I need to use the async, and with this async part I can get the response in one of my variable. And in this response we are again having the same thing. If I can simply console that, console.log the response. So if I can simply write again here as paneer, then we need to check, yeah, so inside that paneer we are having the data, like inside this response we are having the data key, and inside data we are having hits. So like again the question is where we will be keeping our response or the recipe list. So I'll again like declare a state for that. Like initially the recipe list will be empty, so I am initializing that with the empty, maybe the empty array, and this will be the name as recipe list. And like if I talk about the method can be update recipe list. So we just need to keep our state name as meaningful as possible. So I'll be like updating this recipe list once we have fetched that. And as we all know that inside the response we are having the data key, and inside the data we are having the hits, so that like our recipe list can be popped up with the exact data that we need. So if I can simply refresh this, and like if I can go to the React developer tools in the component section, and we are keeping the states in the app. Initially, the like you can see the recipe list is empty. If I'm gonna write here as paneer, then you can see that response.data.hits has updated our recipe list, and inside this recipe list we are having the recipes. So now we can make use of these recipes in order to like maintain our data, or make our website dynamic, or we can say the with the real-time data. So now the thing is like this is again a good concept that is working with the list in the React.js. So here, like as we know that here we are having the hard-coded data, I can simply remove the one which is hard-coded, and here what I can write is I can again like have the curly braces because I just wanted to make things dynamic, and in this inside this curly braces I'll be checking if there is a recipe list and the optional chaining, or maybe if I can skip that, and the recipe list dot length. Agar if the recipe list is having some length, then what I can do is not the ternary one, I'll be using the AND operator. I'll be mapping around this recipe list. So this is the map method, and inside this map method I'll be returning this recipe component, and like in the recipe list I'll be receiving the recipe object, and I can simply pass on this recipe object to my recipe component. Now you can have a look that what's the error here. If I can refresh this, yeah, so there is no error. Initially it's showing the length of the recipe list is 0. If I can write here as paneer, so now here you can see that like exactly 10 numbers of recipe components has been iterated with the map method. Now what we need to do is we just need to like map this recipe object data with the actual UI components. So for that what I can do is inside the recipe component we are receiving the props, and from these props, like if I can console.log, maybe if I can write the props, and if I can simply like go to inspect, and in the console part if I'm writing again as paneer, then you will see that it is the recipe object is there, and inside that recipe object we are having a key recipe. So what we can do is, one thing I can do is I can simply pass as a recipe object dot recipe, because our recipe is inside this recipe key. So I'm just passing this recipe as a recipe object, and this recipe object we can like simply destructure it here like const like these are one of the approaches. I can simply write as like use as props dot recipe object, or what I can do is I can simply destructure this recipe object from the props so that I can use that simply as recipe object. I need not to write props again and again. So now what we can do is inside this recipe object we are having just to populate this recipe component with the real-time data, we are having maybe in the recipes we are having the URL, we must have like the name of the recipe, that is here you can see here the label. So instead of this what I'll be doing is I'll be making it dynamic, and from the recipe object I'll be using the label so that like this this can be with the real-time data. And the next thing is about this source, and for that there should be the image, image key is here. So I'll be using the image key here inside the source of this particular image tag, or we can say the cover image. So boom guys, here you can see that we have like achieved the dynamic behavior of our application. Now everything is coming from the API. If I can refresh this page, then you will see like if I can write here as egg, then you can see here that the egg recipes has been loaded. And the best thing about this application or this approach is that we are not calling the API again and again. If I can write here as maybe noodles, then there is a single API call, and that's how we are working good with this admin APIs. And here are the responses, and responses has been integrated to the UI. Now the next thing is we are done with the API integration, we are done with the debouncing. What we can do is we can simply work on the ingredients pop-up, or we can simply work on this C complete recipe part. So for this C complete recipe, what I'll be doing is C complete recipe. Whenever the user click on this, so on the on click event, I'll be opening another window with the URL of this recipe. So for that I just need to write window.open, and inside this window.open, as we all know that from the recipe structure in the URL part, we are having the URL for this complete recipe. So if I can now if I can click on the C complete recipe, then it will be opening the new window, and from here in the new window, the complete recipe will be visible on the external website from wherever the recipe has been taken. So yes, now this see more button is working absolutely fine. Now we can work on this part, this ingredient section. On clicking on this ingredient section in the actual React recipe finder, if I go to the actual React recipe finder that we have, that I have developed some time ago, if I am writing egg here, then the recipe list should be visible here. And in the ingredient section, there is a modal, or we can say the dialog box that is visible, and on that dialog box a pretty simple table is there. We can style it again, but the pretty simple table for the ingredients is available here. So we can achieve this with that set, I can use the material UI as well. So I can go to the material UI, and in the material UI components, I'm going to use this dialogs. So let's see that how these dialogs works. So if I can open any dialog, let's open dialog, then this is the dialog. And I can brief you about this concept of material UI. So material UI is a component based library from where we can use the dialog box. If I need to implement any dialog box, then I need not to create the dialog box by myself. It is already created by my material UI. So I'll be importing the elements of this material UI. So for that, if I go to the code, then you can see that I need to import dialog, I need to import dialog title. So firstly I can do this with our application. As we all know that material UI is already installed in our application. So I'm writing here as I have imported dialog and the dialog title. Anything else that I can import, we need to choose for some this kind of dialog. So inside these dialog, this is pretty much clear. We are having the dialog, we are having the dialog title. We can use dialog content so that we can show our content there. So I just have imported all the stuff that we need right now. And for that, if I can keep the dialog here, I just need to keep that if I am gonna define the dialog here, then as per the JSX, I need to wrap it up in a fragment or any div. So I'll be using the React fragment. So this way I can use both the dialog and the recipe container in a single approach. And there are few things that we need to know about the dialog. The dialog will always have this key open, if it is open or not. And again, this key I can use this, and for opening and closing they are already having these states. So I can again define this state here, if the dialog is open or not, and I'll simply update this as show, or we can say the set show, if the dialog, we need to show the dialog or not. And on the open property, I can simply use this show variable, so that I will be sure that if that I need to open or not. And again I can close this dialog. Now the thing is just we just need to check if that's working fine or not. So on the click of this ingredient text, what I'll be doing is, like, I can copy this event right now, and I'll be setting this show to true. Now let's see if that's visible or not. If I can write something here inside this dialog box. Now let's see if that's working or not in our application. If I can refresh this, now it's fine, and I can write egg, and from the egg, if I click on ingredients, then yes, like some sort of pop-up is there, the indent text is here. We can style it again, like to a very like wonderful UI, but like before that, like we can use the like predefined things like the dialog actions, dialog title maybe. So for that dialog title, I can simply like maybe copy this and keep it here. And as we need to like keep the dialog as the ingredients, so I'm writing ingredients here. And the next thing is the dialog's content that we need to define here. So for that, I am using this dialog content, and under this dialog content, what I'm gonna keep is, I'm gonna keep the indent def here. Now let's see how it's gonna behave. So it is behaving like pretty well. Now like what we can do is, we can have the content for our like ingredients, and just to make sure whatever ingredients we are receiving and what data is available in the what data is available inside this API. I'm gonna write, like, if I can refresh this, as we need to define a table. For the ingredient, so I can start writing the table. Table is here, and inside the table I can have the table head. Inside the table head, as we can see here, there is one table head as ingredient, and ingredient I can copy from here, and the second ingredient is the weight. So weight of that ingredient left side, like how much of that ingredient is needed. And inside the table body, we need to keep the table rows, and inside these table rows, what we need to do is, we need to define the columns as, like, there will be two columns, one for ingredient and one for the ingredients weight. So if I can just go to this particular thing, and if I can write egg, then inside the response, what we can do is, we can simply check like from which key we need to fetch the data. In the recipe, we are having this ingredient section where the ingredient and its weight is available. Like, we need not to have the image as of now. What we can do is, we can also have the image of that ingredient here. So like right now we are not doing that. What I can do is, I can simply use from this recipe object, I just need to have this ingredients, and for those ingredients I need to loop around, like, as that is an array. I can write here as maybe recipe object dot ingredients dot map, and inside this map, as we are receiving the ingredient, maybe ingredient object, and I can start it with small character, and from here I'll be returning this row. So whatever the amount of the ingredients in the ingredient list, I can simply use these ingredients object dot text, because in the text part the ingredient name is there, and for that, for the weight key is here, so I can simply use weight. Now let's see what's onto the UI. If I can simply refresh this, and after refreshing, the UI should be perfect. If I can write here as maybe chips. Okay, so we are in the very first recipe, and if I just click on the ingredient section, then you can see that the thing is there, like the ingredients are there. I think the weight is not visible. Okay, so we have used the wrong key. Now it should be visible. Yeah, so weight is here, the ingredient list is here. Now one more thing we can add to this like dialog is the dialog actions, and for that dialog actions I just need to import the dialog actions as well, and that we can always look from here. I just need to import the dialog actions, and inside these dialog actions what we can do is we can simply, like, I can fast forward this because I am simply like having these keys, see more and close, and for that, like, if I can go to the dialog content, and before, like, after this I can have the dialog actions, and inside these dialog actions I am having see new tab and see more text, and that I can use similar to this ingredient text and the see more text. Now it should work, and the URL part is the recipe object.url. Now it should work because in the like see more text we are going to the complete recipe, and with the like close text we are closing the dialog. So like I'm setting up the like see more text as, so it is saying something that ingredient text. Okay, so here it is ingredient text, and yeah, now it's fine. It should refresh and work well. Till then it's refreshing. What else I can like make you guys understand that, like, lastly what we have done is whatever the UI components are there, we just move that to the external file. So like one approach for exporting the things or exporting the components is like this. We can like export all the components from here, like in the header component I've done, and just import that header component like singly. And the other approach is like we can import the recipe components like this, like we have exported each and every components like separately. So the good approach is like this. We just need to export all the things as an object. Like I can write here as like export this, and I can have like I can remove this export part, and I can like write it here export container, see more text, and ingredients text, recipe name, cover image, and that's it. That's how we have like exported everything from this file. And if I can simply like format this, then you can see that I'm just having this recipe container, and now I need not to write a lot of stuff here. What I'll be using is I'll be simply importing it as a recipe, and I'll be using, like, if I go back to the UI and in the recipe I can write it as in the recipe component that is again available here, and inside this recipe component I can write here as recipe container, recipe.cover image, recipe name, recipe.ingredients text, recipe.see more text, this way. This way the UI is like pretty much clear, and the import section is always like you can see the import section now. Like these two components are not making any sort of confusion here. So now it's done. I can refresh the page. So now the things are like pretty clear. I can like refresh this. Now one more thing that we can do is, like, instead of this, like if there is no recipes fetched or on the time of loading of this application, what we can do is we can simply have the placeholder for that. Like if recipe length is not there, so what I can do is I can make it ternary, and inside this ternary approach I'll create an like maybe component as placeholder, and placeholder will be an image, and for that source what we'll be using is again this hamburger icon or the image. And this placeholder I need to create, so I can create it here like const placeholder, the styled components, the image, two backticks, and inside that image, like what we can do is we can provide the properties to this image, like the placeholder image. Like before that, if there is any error, okay, so I need to remove this. I've closed this. Now it's fine, the code is fine, and yes, now it can be refreshed. If there is no error, yeah, the error is not there, and now I can design the placeholder part. I know why the server is taking a lot of time. If you are facing like such kind of stuff, what you can do is you can simply stop the server, and you can start it again so that it can behave well, because sometimes it happens that like after a lot of updation and a lot of code changes, thus like local server can like behave a little slow. So for that, like you can again restart this. Okay, so the server has started, now it's working fine, and we as we have like added the placeholder here, so the hamburger icon, the as we all know the size of this icon is very big, so I can simply like provide some sort of styling here to this particular image tag. For that I can like define the width and height. I can keep it as like 120 pixels, and the height is again 120 pixels. I can provide some sort of margin, and like as you can see, if I can cancel this, like you can see that if I close this and just remove this, then you will see that this hamburger icon is again like smaller in size. So let me like clear out the zoom, and what we can do is we can provide some sort of opacity to this particular image so that it can be like look like the placeholder. I can provide opacity to maybe 50%. Yes, now it's fine. And the thing is like if I can do like a quick demo or quick testing of this application, if I am writing egg, the API call is there, and depending on that API call, the elements has been like rendered on the UI. If I can minimize this, so this is altogether our application, and that is developed in a good way. Like now you can like have a look, and now you can compare with this with the actual React recipe finder that I have created. So here you can see that the components are pretty much similar. Some sort of maybe, yeah, you can see the image is a little bit disturbed, that we can again fix it. In the see complete recipe, it will be redirected to the like final recipe, or we can say the complete recipe page. We can see the ingredients as well, like right now here we can see the ingredients and the ingredients weight. What is this? I just need to remove this. I can check it here. Okay, so this is some random text is here. If I can save this, then it should be like good to go. On click on like, yeah, ingredients is here, weight is here, and if I click on this close button, it will like definitely close this, or we can say set this false. And after setting it false, it will close the dialog. So let's see like if it's working. Yeah, on clicking on close, it's closing the dialog, and on clicking on the ingredients, like here the ingredient listing is here. So that's all. Like for this application, we have achieved a lot of things in this application. And for fixing the cover image, we can go to this recipe component. In the cover image section, what we can do is like whenever you are facing this kind of like issue where the image is stretched, or maybe some sort of like issue with that, so what we need to do is we just need to provide a CSS property for that, like for this cover image of this recipe container, and that CSS property is again object fit. If I write object fit as cover, then the email will like the image will not stretch, that you can see here. Now you can compare, the applications are pretty much similar. some sort of padding is again here, but it looks fine, it is perfectly good. So boom guys, you have achieved a lot from this video as well. Like we have learned API integration, we have learned material UI, we have learned the debouncing concept, and now we are going to deploy it to the GitHub pages so that you can have the proper URL. And for that reference, if you are looking for something like hosting your website or React application on GitHub pages, you can simply proceed with this video. And the steps for this is again pretty much clear. If I can go to this video, I'm not gonna see it, but I'll take the reference for the deployment from my GitHub repository. You can always go there and check the steps for deploying the React application. So for that, what we need to do is we just need to provide the home page in our package.json that I'll simply add here in my package.json file, that I can check from here in the package.json. I can add another property, home page, and inside this home page you need to provide your username. My username is ayushkul, and the repository name is the React recipe finder. So I can write it here, the React recipe finder. And again, if you need any sort of help in terms of code or anything, then you can simply go to this particular URL that is again mentioned in the description box. So from here you can always get the code of this particular React recipe finder. So yes, this is the homepage I have added to my package.json file. Now what I need to do is I can add these commands in the script section, and we need to install these GitHub pages. For that, I can go to the terminal, I can open another terminal, and I can write here as npmi GitHub pages -f and save, and it will save the dependencies in my in my package.json as well. Now we need to connect our project. If I can again open another terminal and I can write here git init, it will initialize the Git repository, and we need to connect it with to our remote repository, that is the React recipe finder. So I can simply write it here as git remote. Username I just need to replace kul, and I just need to provide the repository name, that is React recipe finder. And this way, if I click on enter, so it has added my remote repository with this project. I can simply run if that is installed. So we will wait for this installation, and after that what we can do is we can just run this script, that is npm run deploy, and this deploy will make a build of our application, and it will publish our application over GitHub pages. So let's see once it's done. So now it's done, the GitHub pages has been installed, and that has been added to our package.json as well. Now what we can do is we can again run this deploy command, and this deploy command will be creating the build of our application, that is npm run build. And after building this application, what it will doing is it will simply deploy our web app, or we can say the React application, to GitHub pages. And let's wait for this optimized build. Once it's done, we can always go to this particular thing. Once the code is deployed on this React recipe finder, we can again match our application. So that's how we have built a beautiful React recipe finder, and we have learned a lot from this video as well. And the target for this particular video is only 40 likes, so please make sure to like this video. And if you guys haven't subscribed to the Indian Dev, then please subscribe to the Indian Dev, and let me know in the comment section that what else we can build, what else will help you guys to understand the React concepts and to get the hands-on practice on Reactjs.